Hello and welcome to DesignOS. We have talked about the pen tool in detail in the last episode, so let's start this episode by talking about the pencil tool. If you have used the pencil tool inside of a program like MS Paint, it is a very similar story here. We can draw random shapes using the pencil tool. All you have to do is create a frame first of all, get bigger, we can zoom in, and we can go to the pencil tool, or you can access it by pressing Shift P, and we can start drawing random shapes using the pencil tool, and Figma will smooth out your curves. So let's say like this. If I zoom into this, you'll see that Figma will smooth out some of the curves. In the design panel, we still have the same options as we did for the line tool. And if you double click on any of the parts that you draw with the pencil tool, you'll see that these are still vectors and you can still edit them. So you can push them out, bring them back in, make them even more curvier, and edit them however you want to. All right, that's all for the pencil tool. Next, we have the text tool. So we can get to the text tool by clicking here or just pressing T on a keyboard. And once we have equipped the text tool, all we have to do is click anywhere on our frame and then we can type any text. So I'll just type DesignOS. Now, let's take a look at all the options that we have for our text. First of all, we have the typeface option. So I'll just go ahead and select all my text. You can do this by pressing Control on Windows and Command on Mac, then hitting A, and that will select all your text. And we can go ahead and change the typeface of our text. So I will go ahead and turn this into the branding text that we have, and that changes the typeface. One thing that I would suggest you to do before changing any typefaces inside of Figma is go to figma.com, and then we can go ahead and click on our name over here, scroll down a little, and as you can see, the fonts option here, it says local fonts are enabled. It might not say that for you. It might give you a downloader. You will have to download it and then install it to enable local fonts on your system. What this does is give Figma all the fonts that you have installed on your system. This is available for both Windows and Mac, and now you can use all the local fonts that you have on your system inside of Figma as well. So I'll go back to my artboards. And one thing about any text layer is if you left click on it, you will select it. But if it's unselected and you double click on it, it will select all your text. So let's move on to the other options that we have. After typeface, we have the font weight option. So I can change the weight of my font from regular to something like bold and center my text again. We also have the font size option. So I can increase the size of my font to anything that I want. You can also type in anything you want, so like 96, and I can center my text again. After this, we have some of the more advanced editing options. So I will go ahead and create a new frame and I will insert some text in here, smaller size text, so 36. And one pro tip is to always go and search for lorem ipsum, go to lorem ipsum generator, and this will give you generate lorem ipsum. This will give you some dummy text. If you want to copy, you may have seen lorem ipsum written in places, so you can just copy one of these paragraphs and go back to Figma, paste it over here. And as you can see, when I paste my lorem ipsum text in my space, it runs in one line, so it goes on and goes on forever because the text is very long. This is because you have pasted your text inside of a text. You have not pasted it inside of a text box. So what I will go ahead and do now is select the text tool, and I will draw a text box using the same freehand technique that we use for creating frames and stuff. So I'll go ahead and do that. And now if I paste my text in here, you'll see that my text is now filled inside of this text box. All right, I'll go ahead and delete this, come back to this one. If you have text pasted inside of a simple text, not a text box, you can go ahead and resize it as well, and that will convert it into a simple text box. So I'll go ahead and do that. And now I have my text. I will make this smaller. Now, what I want you to understand is the line height property. So line height, you would usually want to leave it to auto, but if you want to increase the space between each line or decrease it, you can go ahead and enter a simple value. So I'll go ahead and enter 0 here. And as you can see, there is no spacing between any of the lines. So all the lines are basically in the same line again. 22 is what was suggested to me by the auto line height. And I can go ahead and increase this to 100. And now every line has a spacing of 100 pixels between it and the next line. I'll go ahead and set it back to auto. Next one is my letter spacing option. So I'll go ahead and increase this number and see what happens. And as you can see, the spacing between each letter is now increased by 30%. You would again want to leave this at 0%, or you can type in auto and that will change it to the default of that particular typeface. We also have the paragraph spacing option now. So I'll go ahead and copy this text again and enter another paragraph. Now, if I increase the paragraph spacing, you'll see that the spacing between each of these paragraphs is now increased. So the difference between line height and the paragraph spacing is that line height changes the spacing between each line, and paragraph spacing changes the spacing between each paragraph. So if I go ahead and increase the line height, now as you can see, the spacing between each line has increased, and if I change the spacing between the paragraphs, only the spacing between the paragraphs increases. I'll go ahead and set these back to their default now. Next to these, we have three toggles. Using the auto width toggle, which is this first one here, we can keep writing the text and we can only go to the next line if we press enter. So by this, I mean, if I press on this, you'll see that our text goes back to the normal text instead of being a text box, and the width is now whatever the width of our text is. So if I press enter, you'll see that only then can my text go into the next line. Otherwise, I will continue typing in a straight line. The next option is the auto height option. This is basically a text box. So now if I make my text box smaller, you'll see that all my text is now pasted in here, and it also goes into the next line quite easily. Now if I copy this again and paste it, you'll see that the height of my text box changes as soon as I enter more text, while my width remains constant. So this is the auto height option, where the height is a variable. It increases and decreases as you add and remove text, and the width always remains the same. You'll want to use this option most of the times because your screens are confined spaces and you usually scroll from top to bottom instead of left to right. So your auto height option will be your friend. Finally, we have the fixed height and width option, or the fixed size option, which is this one. So if I have that selected and I copy more text, say this much, and then paste it, you'll see that this text is now out of my text box. You would want to use this option when you want to have a confined and constrained space that does not change with the text. After this, we have the three alignment options, which are very similar to what you may have seen when using Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, something like that. So I'll go ahead and explain these. This is the left align option. So your text is now aligned to the left. If I change my text, the left side stays there and it starts typing from left to right. Now, if I change this to center align and I start editing, it starts to grow from the center. So it goes to the left and the right side. And if I make this right align, then the right side will stay put and the left side will move. Those are the three alignment options. And finally, we also have vertical alignment options. So I'll go ahead and create a new frame, delete this, create a text box. And in this, I'll just type DesignOS again and I'll center it. Now, as you can see, DesignOS is sticking to the top of my text box. If I go ahead and select the middle align option, my text will go into the middle of the text box. And if I go ahead and select the bottom align option, it will go ahead and stick to the bottom of the text box. Now we can go through some of the extra type details options that we have in Figma. So first of all, what I want you to do is click on the type details option, and now we can go through all of these. So first we have alignment. This is similar to the alignment over here, except now we also have justified. So if you want to make your text justified, you can go ahead and do that. Next, we have decorations. So there are only two decorations. The first one is underline. So you can make your text underlined, and the other one is strike through. So you can strike through your text. You can also select some part of the text. So let's say only this sentence, and we can make this underline or this strike through. We also have paragraph indent. If we want to change where the first letter of every paragraph starts, we can go ahead and do that. So let's add 20 over here, and a space of 20 pixels will be added before every paragraph starts. Next, we also have the casing. So I can change my case from the normal typing case into uppercase. All my letters are now capitals. Lowercase, all my letters will be lowercase. To demonstrate the other cases, I'll go ahead and add some more text. So the quick brown fox, and I'll make this text smaller and center it. Now I can go ahead and show you the title case. So this changes the first letter of every word into a capital. We also have small caps, which changes only the first letter of every sentence into a bigger capital and makes the size of the rest smaller. And we also have forced small caps. So I can go ahead and change this to four small caps. So now every word will be a forced small capital. Next, we have the case sensitive fonts. And if I go ahead and change my font back to Roboto, you'll see that this option changes to capital spacing. What this option basically does is change the spacing between each of your capitals. You can also go ahead and change your spacing using the letter spacing option, or you can go ahead and select this as well. So just as a demonstration, having it at none reduces the spacing, having it turned on increases the spacing. Next, we have the option for numbers. So I'll go ahead and type some numbers 2, 4, 7, 6, and 8, 9. I'll go ahead and select all of these. This option is usually left at the default of the font, but if you want, you can go ahead and change this to proportional, which decreases the spacing, or you can go to monospace, which increases the spacing. You can go ahead and change it to the old style, where some numbers like 4, 7, 9, these are placed below the other numbers like 6 and 8. You may not want to do this with all fonts because, like you can see, this just does not look right. Some fonts are built for this, some are not. We also have the monospace option for this old look as well. I'll go ahead and change this back to normal, and you can also change the position of numbers. You can subscript them or you can superscript them, but as you can see, some fonts do not support it. So if you have a supported font, you can go ahead and do that. You also have fractions, so you can change the size of your number. And if I go ahead and add a slash, and as you can see, the first number that I have, that is 2, is now above all the other numbers. So this is like a fraction, 2 upon 4, 7, 6, 8, 9. You can go ahead and change this back, and I'll remove this. You also have ligatures. So if I go ahead and type Figma and change this back to the normal font, you can see that the F and the I are now colliding. So to fix that, you can go ahead and turn ligatures off. That will go ahead and change that to a normal I. And if you select it and turn it on, it will go back to colliding again. So I'll just turn this off. And for rear ligatures, if I go ahead and type F here, and now if I turn rear ligatures on, you'll see that these two Fs are now combined. If I go ahead and turn it off, after selecting it, those two are now separate. So you can experiment with these if you want. And finally, we have stylistic set. So these are different styles for different words. The first one is for G, and all of this depends on the type of font you have. So for Roboto, you can see that G can be written in two types. You can go ahead and explore all of these. The second one is for alpha. Third one is for R. You can see the differences here as well. If you hover your mouse over the on and the off option, so if I turn it on, my R will look something like that. And if I turn it off, my R will look like that. You can go ahead and explore all of these for your fonts. I can also go ahead and explain kerning pairs to you. So if I go ahead and type L and T, and if I draw a rectangle over here, you can see that the L and the T are very much spaced apart. They are not colliding at all. But this is not a natural look, because usually when you write L and T using your hand with a pen or a pencil, you'll notice that the bottom part of the L and the upper part of the T are usually along the same line. However, here they are spaced. So I can go ahead and turn kerning pairs on, and you'll see that L is now under the T. That is what kerning pairs is. You can see what all kerning pairs this font has to offer. You can go ahead and also explore this option with other fonts as well. And the other features are really similar to what we have already discussed. Fraction denominators and fraction numerators. This basically changes the numbers position. So that is all about the text tool. We can now move on to the next tool, which is the hand tool. And we have already discussed hand tool a little bit. If you have nothing selected and you hold on space, you can get to your hand tool, or you can just press H, or you can of course go to the top toolbar and equip your hand tool. This is usually the tool that you want your developers to use. You can move around the entire document, zoom in and out, and again move around without messing anything up. If you're a designer, you can request your managers and your developers to use this tool all the time, have it as a default, and just move around using the hand tool and not disturb anything in your document. Finally, we have the last tool, which is the comment tool. You can use this to make notes for yourself. So let's go ahead and press C on our keyboards, or you can just go ahead and select the comment tool from up there. And now if I click anywhere, so let's say I want to click right here, you can add a comment right then and there. You can go ahead and type anything you want. So something like change this image to something brighter. And you can also go ahead and tag people that are in your document. So if I use the add option, I can go ahead and tag myself. If I have other people in my document, I can go ahead and tag them as well. And if I tag myself and I press comment, that comment will now be there. I can also go ahead and copy the link to this comment. I can edit the comment and I can delete the comment. I can also reply to my own comments and other people can reply to my comments as well. And I can mark my comment as done or resolved so that it goes away from here. And if I want to see it back, I can go ahead and select show resolve comments on the right side and that will give me my comment. If I am somewhere else in the document and I go ahead and click on the comment from the right side, it will take me right back to that comment. Now you might be thinking, I can tag people, but how do I add them to the document in the first place? So to do that, all you have to do is click on the share button over here, and now you can invite anyone using their Figma email ID and you can give them access to the document so they can either view the document so they won't be able to make changes, or they can edit the document. If that person is another designer, you should give them edit options. If they're only a developer or a manager, you should only give them view options. And if you send them an invite, it will send them an email and they can go ahead and join your document as well. And once they are in your document, their name will pop up right over here somewhere, saying the name and their options. So if they can edit or if they can view only. If they are online in your document, you will go ahead and see their name right over here somewhere. Just like the T here stands for DesignOS, that's the ID that I'm using. If someone named Matt is to join your document, an M will pop up here and you will be able to see their cursor on the screen as well. Alright, so those are the tools in Figma. We need to go over a few things like variants, constraints, and styles and auto layouts, which are very important, of course. But for now, we can go back to learning UI design and use Figma to bring our interfaces to life.